Hello and welcome. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Imphal today. He's just announced a huge developmental push into the northeast with about 5,000 crore rupees of development through the railways for connectivity across the northeast. This is in continuation of the 2-year anniversary celebrations of the Narendra Modi government. Virtually every senior minister who is in this current government has been giving interviews and explaining to people the kind of achievements the Modi government has had and the challenges ahead. The Times of India has also done its own survey to do a report card of the Narendra Modi government. With me here is Sanjeev Singh, who's senior editor with the Times of India, to discuss this particular survey. Sanjeev, this survey is a pretty exhaustive one. It looks at 8 cities, the 8 big cities of India, and it tries to find an approval rating of what the level of approval ratings for the Prime Minister are. What are the big highlights?
Well, the Narendra Modi government actually can complement itself because the ratings seem to be pretty good. If you look at the overall ratings, he still has a positive approval. Like, if you look at somewhat good and if you look at very good.
Yeah.
So these two themselves, if you see, the number is overwhelming. This is at 45%.
Right.
And this is at...
And very good is 17. So that's about 62% think that he's either very good or somewhat good. And if I may just put this in perspective, last year when we did the same survey, the number was at 67% of approval ratings for the Prime Minister. That's gone down to 62, but 62 is still very high for a Prime Minister who's now entering his 3rd year of governance.
Yeah, so I mean, as we discussed earlier when the assembly results had come, that, the Narendra Modi government or the NDA has actually managed to hold on to its 2014 showing, and that itself is a big achievement. So, if you're saying 45% good and 17% very good.
If I may add that those who are saying poor or very poor, that's between these two, this has gone up to 16%. And that's higher than percent poor or very poor. So that's the sort of broad environment in terms of the way this current government is being perceived. Now let's look at what the people of India currently think are the big initiatives of the Modi government, which they think are signature initiatives which have done well. The first one, of course, is Swachh Bharat, as far as our survey findings are concerned.
Yeah, and this reflects the mood of the people also. That this is one initiative that was actually started. The name was different. It was started by the UPA, but we've seen that how the new government and talking when he actually took it up on Mahatma Gandhi's birthday with anniversary.
So Swachh Bharat is at 42%. 42% of people surveyed felt Swachh Bharat was the biggest deal they've done. Second is Make in India at 13%. And foreign policy comes in at about 8%. Foreign policy is, of course, something that the Prime Minister spent a lot of time gesturing around the world with a very muscular and with certainly a very active foreign policy. If we can, Sanjeev, spend the next couple of minutes for those who are watching, just deconstructing this. This is what our survey is telling us, what people think are the big initiatives of the government. Let's just deconstruct what the government has actually done in these particular things. So let's take Swachh Bharat first.
Okay.
What was promised and what has been delivered in as far as this initiative is concerned?
See, if you look at figures, it is a good initiative, but the targets that were set by the government for the year 2016 is actually running behind schedule. So the numbers that we have is that for the year 2015, 2016, we're actually running behind by about 76%.
Okay. That's quite high, actually.
Yeah.
And this is the government signature scheme.
Yes. And see, they have to, that the target set is of over 2 million households, 2.4 million households. So actually, government had set itself very ambitious targets.
Yeah.
And we've seen that there are problems in implementing it because, of course, you need the help of state governments, and plus, there also needs to be a mindset when you do this. So I guess,
I think it's also important to say here, Sanjeev, that implementation also depends a lot on the states. And there's some interesting figures here that there are 4 or 5, while a lot of progress has been made, and which is why almost half of India finds this to be a signature initiative of the government. There are 4 or 5 states which are lagging quite far behind. And those are Jammu and Kashmir, Delhi, Assam, Himachal, and Uttarakhand, which has been in the news recently with a big political controversy.
Yeah, so there could be logistical problems also, as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned.
And these are the laggards. And let's just look at the states which have done well in Swachh Bharat. And there, the numbers are quite interesting. There's Gujarat, which is on the top of toilets which are under construction or those which have been completed. Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, all 3 BJP ruled states. Andhra Pradesh and Maharashtra. So about 4 of these are BJP ruled states.
And this is also an NDA ruled state. So TDP. So that actually shows that, if the government comes to your help. So these are all BJP.
So if we just move forward, so we're getting a lot of comments, Sanjeev, while we are talking. And mostly, I think people are writing in about what they think about the Modi government. The kind of comments we are getting, they are more or less reflective of what we are finding, what we found in our survey in urban areas as well. Let's take a look now at foreign policy. Because foreign policy is something which people have found rated fairly high in their priorities about the Modi government. And let's look at the foreign policy ratings. 45% of Indians find that his foreign policy outreach has been very good.
Very good.
Sorry, 45% good, 23% very good, 24% average, and 8%
good is how much?
Good is 45%. Average is 24%. So that's a staggering majority of Indians who are generally quite all right as far as the Prime Minister's policy is concerned. And what's particularly surprising is the kind of outreach the Prime Minister has made to Pakistan, where he's gone out of his way, gone out of the box, if you like, and gone against the orthodoxy. And that has very high approval ratings.
Does it?
The Pakistan policy, 39% of Indians find Prime Minister's Pakistan policy to be quite courageous.
Okay.
Courageous is 39%.
Okay, you need... Okay, is how much?
39%, and 40% is realistic. So that's an overwhelming majority who are generally
realistic.
Realistic is 40%. So overwhelmingly, nearly 80% people, 79% people are finding are giving a thumbs up in general to the Pakistan policy, which is quite heartening because he's really
he's made the effort. Especially on 25th December,
especially after Pathankot.
So the very fact that he was in Afghanistan and then he decided to go and wish Pakistani President Nawaz Sharif on his birthday. That was a gesture which people said is actually going to backfire on Narendra Modi. And then we saw the Pathankot attack happening. In fact, India has gone to the extent of even inviting the Pakistan team to come and investigate, though not much headway has been made. But
despite all of that, despite Pathankot, despite the sort of...
At least he's making the effort.
And despite the sort of evidence of Pakistani obduracy since, we've had no breakthrough in the foreign secretary level talks. We found no reciprocity, at least so far in the public domain, as far as Indian investigators going to Pakistan. But yet, I think people are willing to give the government a chance, and they're willing to. They're okay with the kind of moves the Prime Minister is making. I think, Sanjeev, we looked at what people have given a thumbs up to the government for. Let's look at what they think are the big challenges and what they think are the failures. So, in a sense, which should define really the roadmap for the next 3 years ahead, and that's particularly important. What next? And the biggest failures here, Sanjeev, are when we ask people, what do you think are the biggest failures of the government? 43% said no jobs.
That is a huge issue.
19% said confrontation with the opposition. 13% talked about the students' issue, the controversy over JNU and about Rohit Vemula. Now, bear in mind that this is in the context of 62% of Indians giving an overall thumbs up to the Prime Minister. We are now looking at the challenges. So let's deconstruct this a little bit, because this particular figure here about jobs is really challenging. Because while we are having growth, India has, we are the fastest growing economy of its size in the world. The big challenge is, growth by itself doesn't win you elections. It doesn't get you votes. What you need is jobs. And our challenge is, how do we get around the question of jobless growth? So what's the big challenge here, Sanjeev?
Well, the big challenge is that, it is a fact that we are going to add about 10 million people to our workforce every year. So, and they need jobs.
Right.
That is the big challenge for this Narendra Modi government.
Yeah.
And
so that's a huge figure. That comes down to almost a million a month who are joining the workforce every month.
Yeah.
And that's a tall order for any government.
And this is going to happen for the next 10 years. So
right.
It's not just about 1 year or 2 years.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a huge challenge for the government. And also the problem is that if you, this is including the fact that we already have such a high percentage of people working in the agriculture sector.
Yeah.
So,
so how does it look like, Sanjeev, and what should the government be? I mean, what's the big? If you can put the numbers in perspective.
See, at the current, what we have is that most of our employment is actually in the agriculture or allied sector, where 47 in every 100 people are working.
There are 47 out of every 100 Indians are in agriculture or allied sectors.
Yes.
That's agriculture, forestry, and fishing.
Yeah. But the problem is that only 61 out of 100 people get jobs 365 days a year.
Right. So these are people above the age of 15 who are from 35 to about 60 who are looking for work, and only about 61 get it for every day of the year. Others find it part-time or don't find it at all.
Yeah. Which is why, a scheme like the Narendra is very important, because it at least gives you employment for 100 to 150 days in a year.
And this government has invested a great deal in Narendra after initially saying that it's a monument to Congress's failures, if you like. The Prime Minister.
And we had also discussed that it was one of the reasons why Jayalalitha did so well in Tamil Nadu, because she actually used the scheme very well to her advantage.
If I can add here, Sanjeev, that the Prime Minister has given an interview to the Wall Street Journal also yesterday, where he made a point about saying that, look, our definition of reforms is different from outside. And he made a point that, we can't just remove subsidies and we can't just remove social welfare schemes. And India's model will be different. And he referred to Narendra there in particular. And I think the government realizes that given the social insecurities you have in India in terms of jobs, a scheme like Narendra is particularly important as a welfare net.
Yeah, of course, because especially in times of drought, we've seen that the past 2 years there's been drought, farmers are under stress. That is when actually Narendra kicks in, because if you don't have full employment, then you can actually get some sort of work.
Yeah.
I'd also like to bring in the agriculture sector.
Yeah.
I mean, though it is a big.
Sorry to interrupt you, Sanjeev. If you just write this agriculture figure, I just wanted to add one more point to the employment figures. The problem with the unemployment figures also is, which is our understanding, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that overall they are only collected every once so often. The overall holistic all India pictures of numbers for the economy. What we have currently are sector specific figures which are done every quarter, and currently the primary jobs, as far as I understand, are being created in the IT sector and in the BPO sector.
Yes, you're absolutely.
And the challenge for the government is to create it in other sectors.
So this is IT and BPO.
Yeah. These are the sectors which are creating the primary jobs in the economy.
Yeah, also the problem is that because you don't have exact figures for unemployment.
On an all India level.
Yeah. So
you only have estimates for industries.
Then what it does is that it also impedes on, the RBI and all these other agencies which actually have to look for long-term solutions.
Yeah.
So if you don't have these numbers, then everyone is screwed.
Right. Sanjeev, let's go back to the point you were making about agriculture.
Yeah, so if 47 in 100 people are employed in agriculture, that is a sector that we've heard Prime Minister Narendra Modi talking about it.
Yeah.
So, but the growth, although it is much better than what it was the previous year, it still needs to do a lot of work. So, I'll just put the.
While you're writing this, there is a comment here from Prasad Sanyal. What is NSSO? And if I can answer that, the NSS, of course, is a National Sample Survey Organization, which provides unemployment data. And much of our unemployment data, of course, comes from the Labour Bureau and its office in Chandigarh, which puts out numbers. The last ones were for July to September 2015. The last series that I saw, or eight industries, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, and you see, as we were discussing, because it's very tough to actually get the whole numbers. This is the most perhaps authentic or all-encompassing data that you can actually get, because there is no way to figure out the exact figure of unemployment.
So in agriculture, so we've had 1.1% growth. This is 2015-16, and that was 2013-14.
No,
2014-15. Sorry, and this is 2015-16. So this is what the Modi government inherited, and it's increased a little bit from 0.2% to 1. This was actually minus 0.2%.
Oh.
From minus 0.2% has gone to 1.1%.
And they've promised 4% growth. So this is an area of challenge for them, because, and not just this, if we look at the BJP manifesto, they had said that they are going to ensure that farmers get at least 50% return on their investment.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a big challenge for this government.
Yeah. Sanjeev, if I can just add, we're getting a lot of comments. I mean, for example, somebody has wrote in saying, stop finding fault, the government is doing well. I just want to clarify, we are not actually in the business of fault finding or of giving unnecessary advice. What we are trying to do is we are very clear, the survey is very clear, this government has very high approval ratings of 62%, which is very high for a government and is entering its third year. What we are trying to find out is, based on the survey, what were its successes, what people think are its failures, and therefore what is the roadmap ahead. It's a very constructive discussion we are having. Let's be very clear about it. And these are genuine issues which the government is grappling with. So it's absolutely fair enough to discuss it. And we are doing it based on the basis of Government of India facts and figures.
See, we are not here to make any value judgment.
Yeah.
We are here to just put things in perspective.
Absolutely.
And which is what we're doing. So, and see, we discussed about the Make in India campaign initiative getting heads up from the people. So it's actually gone up,
right,
from 5.5% to 9.5%.
That's manufacturing growth.
This is growth for
manufacturing. Now, while this is growing on, I mean, obviously the challenge now is job creation.
See, the other sector which the government actually needs to focus on is real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now the real estate is actually in a state of limbo. Because what happens is that when there is distress in the agriculture sector, you see most of the unskilled labor, they actually migrate to cities, and their first job that they get is in the real estate sector. But since that is itself in a limbo, perhaps, if they can do, they've already passed the real estate bill, but if they can actually boost the real estate sector, then the sort of unemployment figures that we're getting, that can actually be taken care of if the unskilled labor can be.
Okay. So on that note, I think we'll call for a pause on this discussion. Just to reiterate, the Times of India survey shows that 62% of Indians at this rate, 8 metropolitan cities, they are giving a thumbs up to the Modi government. That's down from 67% who were surveyed at the same time last year, 5% down from last year, but still a substantial majority. And now the task ahead for the government, of course, is how does it manage the next 3 years? How does it create more jobs for the next 3 years? And of course, negotiating the big political challenge for next year, which is UP. I mean, there's a reason why the Prime Minister held a rally in Saharanpur and said, "Main UP wala hu."
Yes, of course, he does represent Varanasi, so that means he is a UP wala. So you've got elections in UP, Punjab, you've got elections in Gujarat,
Uttarakhand.
Yes, Uttarakhand. So 5 states, and especially this state, and this is of course his home state.
Yeah.
So it's quite important for him to actually deliver on the issues that we discussed about as far as unemployment is concerned. Also, the fact that confrontation with the opposition, perhaps there is a sense that the government should actually be more friendly or reach out to the opposition. Well, sticking to your guns is a different thing, but extending the olive branch once in a while will always help them.
Yeah. Sanjeev, thanks so much for joining us and providing perspective on these numbers. On that note, we'll take a short break here. Keep watching the Times of India for live updates and for the latest news. Thanks so much.